Bartholomew Augustine Santamaria, usually known as B.A. Santamaria, was an Australian Roman Catholic anti-communist political activist and journalist. He was a guiding influence in the founding of the Democratic Labour Party. Early in family life, Santamaria was born in Melbourne, the son of a greengrocer who was an immigrant from the Aeolian Islands in Italy. Santamaria was educated at St Ambrose's Catholic Primary School in Brunswick, behind his father's shop, and later at St Joseph's, North Melbourne, by the Christian Brothers. He finished his secondary education at St Kevin's College as dux of the school. One of his teachers, Francis Mart, belonged to a newly founded Roman Catholic association, the Campion Society. Santamaria attended the University of Melbourne, where he graduated in Arts and Law. He completed his Master of Arts degree with a thesis entitled "Italy Changes Shirts: The Origins of Italian Fascism." Santamaria was a political activist from an early age, becoming a leading Catholic student activist and speaking in support of Franco's forces in the Spanish Civil War. He also supported and wrote about Benito Mussolini, but denied he had been a supporter of fascism. Santamaria was married in 1939 and had 8 children, several of whom became prominent in various professions, but none of whom followed him into political activism. In 1980, his wife, Helen, died. He later married Dorothy Jensen, his longtime secretary. His brother, Joseph, was a Melbourne surgeon and prominent in the Roman Catholic bioethics movement. Catholic worker movements. In 1936 he co-founded the Catholic Worker, a newspaper influenced by the social teaching of the Roman Catholic Church, particularly the encyclical Rerum Novarum of Pope Leo XIII. He was the first editor of the paper, which declared itself opposed to both communism and capitalism, although the group campaigned for the rights of workers and against what it saw as the excesses of capitalism. Santamaria came to see the Communist Party of Australia, which in the 1940s made great advances in the Australian trade union movement, as the main enemy. In 1937 he was persuaded by Archbishop Daniel Mannix. He joined the National Secretariat of Catholic Action, a lay activist organization. During World War II, Santamaria gained an exemption from military service. In 1972, Arthur Calwell, a leading Catholic Labour politician, confirmed that Santamaria had dodged war service after Mannix had approached him to gain the exemption. When asked, Calwell stated, "I want to put the record straight because apparently the Department of Defense cannot find any of the records, nor can the Department of Labour and National Service." Santamaria and 2 other men were, argued Mannix, members of the Secretariat of Catholic Action, and that the work was equivalent to that of a minister of religion. Calwell said, "I regret my part in it. I want the country to know that these 3 men who have been pestering and opposing and demonstrating against the Australian Labour Party for the last 30 years were people who dodged military service." He reflected on the Vietnam War and noted that all 3 supported it and conscription of men for military service, adding, "I regret that these people who benefited from our generosity did not beget any children who went out to fight in the war in Vietnam. The sons were exempted, all of them, because they were employed in reserve institutions, as were the fathers." Santamaria denied the allegation that he had ever sought an exemption and stated that, if Mr. Calwell repeated his statement outside of Parliament, he would take appropriate action. Calwell moderated his statements regarding Mart but not on Mitchell or Santamaria. In May 1972, previously missing records were found confirming Calwell's version. In 1941, Santamaria founded the Catholic Social Studies movement, generally known simply as the Movement or Groupers, which recruited Catholic activists to oppose the spread of communism, particularly in the trade unions. The movement gained control of the industrial groups in the unions, fighting the communists and gaining control of many unions. This activity brought him into conflict not only with the Communist Party but with many left-wing Labour Party members, who favoured a united front with the communists during the war. During the 1930s and 1940s, Santamaria generally supported the conservative Catholic wing of the Labour Party, but as the Cold War developed after 1945, his anti-communism drove him further away from Labour, particularly when H.V. Evatt became leader of the Labour Party in 1951. 7 Labour MPs, elected from Victoria and associates of Santamaria, criticised Evatt's leadership over the next 4 years. Labour split and the National Civic Council. Events leading to the split included a well-publicised incident in the Victorian Parliament. In October 1954, the Sydney Sun-Herald reported on a letter sent by the Victorian Minister for Lands, Robert W. Holt, to the Federal Secretary of the Australian Labour Party, a Mr. J. Schmeller, which the paper described as probably as explosive politically as any document in Australia. Holt stated, "My charge is that the Victorian branch is controlled and directed in the main by one group, a section through Mr. B. Santamaria. My criticism is not personal. It is levelled against those ideas which are contrary to what I believe Labour policy to be. Moreover, I have been requested by my numerous and trusted friends, who happen to be Catholic, to fight against the influence of Mr. Santamaria and those he represents, when he seeks to implement his ideas through an abuse of a political movement, designed to serve a truly political purpose." Holt spoke of events the previous year and describes attending a meeting of Santamaria's National Catholic Rural Movement Convention, following which he was, as Minister of Lands, approached by Santamaria and Frank Scully, where he was asked to use his position to make Crown land available to Italians with foreign capital. When he refused, Santamaria stated that I might not be in the next Parliament, and Scully agreed. Holt considered this a direct threat, which was confirmed when another MLA confided that there was pressure to oppose him for party selection for his seat. He added that subsequent events which happened during the selection ballot had convinced him that the ALP's Victorian branch is not free to implement Labour policy and connives with this method. He concluded by stating his belief in a party machine which permits the true expression of opinion of its members, regardless of who or what they may be. The only requirement is loyalty to Labour ideals and principles. This is not possible in the present circumstances. Holt introduced the Land Bill without Santamaria's desired advantage, and it was at first amended by another ALP member, then defeated, amended again and passed, with what Santamaria wanted, after 2 Liberal Party members switched sides. In December 1954, Santamaria launched a suit against Holt for libel, citing the letter published in full by the Sun-Herald. The libel action was withdrawn, without explanation, in April 1955. In 1954, Evatt publicly blamed the groupers for Labour's defeat in that year's federal election, and after a tumultuous national conference in Hobart in 1955, Santamaria's parliamentary followers were expelled from the Labour Party. The resulting split brought down the Labour government of John Cain Sr. in Victoria. In Victoria, Dr. Mannix strongly supported Santamaria, but in New South Wales, Norman Cardinal Gilroy, the first Australian-born Roman Catholic prelate, opposed him, favouring the traditional alliance between the Church and Labour. Gilroy's influence in Rome helped to end official church support for the groupers. In January 1955, Santamaria used Dr. Mannix as his witness to the statement, "There is no Catholic organisation seeking to dominate the Labour Party or any other political party." so that there will be no equivocation. Catholics are not associated with any other secular body seeking to dominate the Labour Party or any other political party. Santamaria made this statement when he denied charges from the General Secretary of the Australian Workers' Union that the No. 2 man in the Victorian ALP, the No. 2 man in the NSW Labour Party, and the Secretary of the Australian Rules Football Association of Queensland were Santamaria's top lieutenants in the movement. For his part, McManus suggested that Doherty appeared to have contracted an ailment from one of his political colleagues. The chief symptom of this ailment was that the sufferer believed he was always detecting conspiracy theories. Santamaria founded a new organization, no longer an organ of Catholic action, the National Civic Council, and edited its newspaper, News Weekly, for many years. His followers, known as groupers, continued to control a number of important unions. Those expelled from the Labour Party formed a new party, the Democratic Labour Party, dedicated to opposing both communism and the Labour Party, which they said was controlled by communist sympathisers. Santamaria never joined the DLP but was one of its guiding influences, anti-communist and social conservative. During the 1960s and 1970s, Santamaria regularly warned of the dangers of communism in Southeast Asia, and supported South Vietnam and the United States in the Vietnam War. He founded the Australian Family Association and the Thomas More Centre to extend the work of the NCC. However, his political role gradually declined. The death of the 99-year-old Archbishop Mannix ended the Roman Catholic Church's support for the NCC, even in Victoria. In 1974, the DLP lost all its seats in the Senate, and was wound up a few years later. Santamaria ran the NCC in a highly personal and autocratic way, and in 1982 there was a serious split in the organization, with most of the trade unionists leaving it. The first of 4 unions disaffiliated after the split of 1955, attempted to return at the ALP Victorian State Conference in 1983. The Federated Clerks Union and 3 others similarly aligned right-wing unions, the Shop, Distributive and Allied Employees Association, the Federated Ironworkers Association of Australia and the Amalgamated Society of Carpenters and Joiners, had the re-affiliation cases considered by a special Victorian ALP committee of 10 which split on the decision 5-5 and had submitted separate reports to the State Conference. The Federated Clerks case, after a bitter and at times acrimonious 3.5-hour debate, which was centered on alleged links with Santamaria, the National Civic Council, and the Industrial Action Fund, was defeated at the State Conference by 289 votes to 189. It was noted in a news report of the time that all 4 were likely to appeal to the federal ALP executive and that they had the support of then Prime Minister Bob Hawke. The ALP federal executive supported the re-affiliation before the 1985 Victorian State Conference, while 2 of the unions were refused re-affiliation in the Northern Territory later that year. Ultimately, all 4 returned as ALP-affiliated unions in some form. The Federated Clerks Union amalgamated into the affiliated Australian Services Union in 1993. The Shop, Distributive and Allied Employees Association is a current ALP-affiliated union, while the Federated Ironworkers Association of Australia and the Amalgamated Society of Carpenters and Joiners amalgamated with the affiliated Australian Workers' Union, but but Santamaria's personal stature continued to grow through his regular column in the Australian newspaper and his regular television spot. Point of view. A skilled journalist and broadcaster, he was one of the most articulate voices of Australian conservatism for more than 20 years. Traditionalism in the Catholic Church. Santamaria also bitterly opposed what he saw as liberal and non-traditional trends in the Catholic Church following the Second Vatican Council, and founded a magazine through his Thomas More Centre, called A.D. 2000, to argue for traditionalist views. He welcomed Pope John Paul II's return to conservatism in many areas. The Conservative Archbishop of Melbourne, George Cardinal Pell, a staunch supporter and admirer of Santamaria, and a cleric in the style of Dr. Mannix, delivered the panegyric at his funeral, which was held at St. Patrick's Cathedral, Melbourne. Santamaria had died from an inoperable brain tumour at age 82 at Caritas Christi Hospice, Kew, Victoria. On his death, Santamaria was praised by conservatives for his opposition to communism, but also by some on the left and by social democrats for his consistent critique of unrestricted capitalism. Bibliography. Book Santamaria, B.A. The Price of Freedom, The Movement, After 10 Years. Melbourne, Campion Press. Against the Tide. Melbourne, Oxford University Press. Daniel Mannix, The Quality of Leadership. Carlton, Vic. Melbourne University Press. Santamaria, A Memoir. Melbourne, Oxford University Press. Morgan, Patrick, ed. Your Most Obedient Servant, Selected Letters, 1938 to 1996. Carlton, Vic. Migania Press in association with the State Library of Victoria. Morgan, Patrick, ed. Running the Show. Selected Documents, 1939 to 1996. Carlton, Vic. Migania Press in association with the State Library of Victoria. Articles Santamaria, B.A. Frank Knopfel-Macker, Quadrant 39, 31 to 33. Critical Studies, Reviews and Biographies of Santamaria. Ross Fitzgerald, The Pope's Battalions. Santamaria, Catholicism and the Labour Split. St. Lucia, University of Queensland Press, 2003. ISBN 070223389-7. Gerard Henderson, Mr. Santamaria and the Bishops, Sydney, Hale and Iremungup, 1983, ISBN 0868060593. Xavier Connor, al. Santamaria, The Politics of Fear. Richmond, Spectrum, 2000, ISBN 0867862947. Joseph N. Santamaria, The Education of Dr. Joe Ballon, Connor Court Publishing, 2006, ISBN 0975801538. Gerard Henderson, Santamaria, A Most Unusual Man. Melbourne, Migania.